Okay, we're going to have our presentation now. Max is going to tell us about a project he's been working on. And let's welcome Max as our presenter.
So, I made a film that was supposed to be for the 75th anniversary of a group called the Northern Indiana Artists Association. And basically what that is it's a group that, similar to MAF, it's a small group of local Northern Indiana artists, as the name implies, to come together and talk about their art and basically talk about different ways to improve it, etc., etc. But me and my dad were involved in making a commercial for it, for the gallery that they were holding up to display arts of all the members. And so basically, that's just about it.
This happened to be the 75th anniversary.
Yeah, the
For
75th
this.
anniversary.
So they asked us, and I kind of volunteered Max, to go ahead and put something together for them for this unique opportunity, which was held at, I think it was the Mid-American Gallery in Elkhart,
Yeah.
which was a really, really excellent exhibit. So the artists there came together, and what Max did was he put together this documentary you're going to see, and it worked. I think it worked out pretty well. They were very happy with it. They were very pleased with it.
And so were we.
Yeah.
So, okay, so while the credits roll, I'm gonna give you a little bit of information. I was the director of photography, and my dad was narrator and interviewer for all the artists. And
I was?
yeah, crazy, right?
Yeah.
But,
I've slept since then.
but for equipment, there was a lot of equipment that we got that was really useful to the movie that we got from the St. Joseph County Public Library, because they have tripods, and they have like this room, they have a sound room that is where we did the narration portion of the film. And it was all in general really useful, but just to let you guys know, all the actual footage that was made on the movie was all taken on iPad and iPhone.
Wow,
So,
that's impressive.
There were a couple of things that we found out from
experience.
experience. It's a real challenge to get all these artists together. So what we tried to do was the first opportunity, especially with Jean McGrain, because that woman's 94 years old, and she was a really great source of information from 75 years ago, from when this sounded, when this started, as you could tell.
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure we got to interview her, and we just didn't realize she was going to be as good as she was. She was a natural. But if you listened, we had to do it at the
Croc Center.
At the Croc Center. So it was kind of makeshift, to say the least. And what we did was we tried to be the sound. Max, I don't know how you did that, but the sound was so frustrating, because we were in the basement of the Croc Center, or the bottom floor of the Croc Center, but people were coming and going and coming and going, and you're
You
like,
could hear in that one clip that you could hear a kid screaming from upstairs.
you hear doors shutting and things like that, and we did the best that we could, right? And it was not scripted, so we were just doing the best we could with what we had there. I don't know how he did it at the end, because it was a lot worse than that.
I'll get to that in a moment.
Okay, it was a lot worse than that, but.
Our second location was at the, what was it called?
The Century Center.
The Century Center. Upstairs, where there's these studios, and there was an NIA meeting there.
Was there an exhibit?
No, it wasn't an exhibit that we were at, but it was a meeting, but I just set up the camera on the other side of the room where it was completely empty, and we were asking people to volunteer to come over and talk. But that was sort of a mistake because, as you heard, once again, during the interview, you could hear a lot of commotion from the other people. And I didn't want to go like, hey, shut up.
There were a lot of people.
So-
There were a lot of people. But if going to what we were talking about earlier, if you see how he shot it, he was in like a window. If you've ever been to the Century Center, that it looks right out over the river.
Yeah.
They have these long, thin windows that you can kind of stand in, and you're sort of surrounded by it. So he's kind of standing in there.
I placed it
with
right
the
there
with the
in
tripod there, so
So
he
yeah.
could get the light.
Just
Yeah,
the right
yeah.
amount of light.
Yeah, to the face.
Yeah.
So we figured that much out. We
Yeah.
had that much, and that seemed to work, really, really well. But the other thing we did at the Kroc Center was we tried to be consistent, and it was really a challenge. What was really tough, I thought, was they're so talented.
Yeah.
These are really good artists, and they're not just amateur artists, right? And we only used what they had there at that time, for that exhibit. Which, I think if we had to do it over again, we'd have asked for a lot more of their, got a chance to do a lot more of their works. Like, for example, when we were doing the early ones, the founders, Max and I went to different churches around the area that these people made statues for, because that's what they did. At the end of the Depression, in the late 30s and early 40s, one of them was a refugee from Europe.
Yeah.
And they found out he and his wife were artists, were sculptors, and they got him to do a lot of the works over at Notre Dame. At Notre Dame, we see them. They seem to have a lot of money now, but most of those buildings there, even on the basilica, those would be empty.
Yeah. The spaces where the statues would be were empty, and him and Father Bednar
Right.
worked together to make them out of a limestone and concrete solution.
Yeah, it's a real different sort of deal that they could get at the time because the war had started. So, but they're still there, And we went to a couple of other churches too, and that was really great. That was the part
That's
for
why
me.
the statues have a much more white color than the rest of the building.
Right. They don't necessarily match perfectly, but hey, they filled it with something.
The
But
statue at the main entrance of the rock is one of them.
so the research we did together, I wrote the narration, but really mine was minimal. Max did the rest of it. I don't remember asking. I guess I asked the questions at the Kroc Center, but did I ask at the Century Center too?
I'm pretty sure you did.
We kind of tried to keep the same ones,
Yeah.
and then we edited it out later on.
Yeah. And in speaking of editing, to get back to the sound problem, what I did was all the editing that I did in the film was all iMovie. And what I did was there was a setting under sound that allowed you to cancel all all background music or noise. But the thing was that even then, the clips that I did use that setting on, I didn't use it that much because it was super boxed in if I turned it up all the way, and it didn't sound very good at all. And I still wanted to make it sound like they were in a room and not like, I don't know.
More natural, maybe?
Yeah, more natural. But
What would you have done differently?
well,
I
definitely.
mean, aside from,
interviewing a
getting people.
isolated area.
Maybe more of the art that they had, because
Yeah.
like that one lady, we didn't realize she was a sculptress till we saw that. And I mean, her work was crazy good. Really, really fantastic. And they've got so many really talented artists that I think maybe we could have gotten a lot more of it in. But
Yeah.
I was really impressed with how he managed to make it, to sort of fill it in with what we had to work with, and especially the time. You know, of course, I didn't do it, so. it
even
wasn't that big a
even
deal.
by the time we had our deadline, there were people who were. We kept asking them to email us their artwork, but they weren't doing it, and we were creeping up to the deadline, and they weren't sending us these art things, these images of their artwork, and so. But in the end, we got them all. But
They were good. They were really, really, really wonderful people to work with. The deadline we had was they were having the 70 sort of the exhibit.
ceremony.
Yeah, for their 75th anniversary, and so we were kind of pressed for that.
Yeah.
And it might have been, we might have edited a little bit differently, and I really didn't get a chance to participate in the editing, which I like editing. I just like editing. You know, sort of like, I'm one of those funny guys who, if you just came back from a vacation and said, hey, look at these pictures I took, I'm like, oh, cool, let's look at them. A lot of people aren't, but I like that. Editing, you know, is, I wish I'd had more time to help him out with it.
Yeah.
But I think he and Mom helped you a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Did a pretty good job. I like the music behind it. I keep forgetting that you did that too. That was really great. And that's a neat trick, isn't it? You know, what you're going to put in the background for that. It can really help. And you know, I thought you did a really good job with that.
Even the music that I chose turned out to be puns, because the titles for that music that was pre-installed in iMovie happened to be like the titles turned out to be puns of what we were making, because they were named after like art styles like watercolor or pastel. So
But I don't think you actually used that because someone said it was a pastel or something. You just
we
It was
didn't
coincidental?
for the sake of do it for the sake of the pun, but we did it just because we liked the music. But it turned out to be a joke.
yeah. So,
But
but I thought you did a really good job. I was really
turned out
really
really
proud
well.
of what you
Proud of
did.
it,
Yeah.
too.
And the cool part about it for a dad is that, you know, he finished something he started.
Yep.
You know, and that's a really big deal. So anytime any of you guys have, you know, the stuff that you've started and you've completed, that's a big deal. You know, it's really cool. And yeah, wouldn't be, you'd do it again, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I would too.
Maybe do
Although
50.
he's not an amateur anymore, because when he won at the thing, they gave him a check.
Oh my gosh.
So, which was really unnecessary, but they were really, really, really,
Especially
very
since it was a
thankful.
voluntary.
Yeah, completely
Yeah.
voluntary.
So.
You may be the only one here that's gotten paid.
So, you know, yeah, he's lost his amateur status. But it was a very nice gesture on their part and completely unnecessary, because I think you got a lot out of it, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed doing it. I'm glad I volunteered you for it.
I'm glad you were forced to do it.
Yeah. So, thanks, guys.
How long did the editing take?
As far as I remember, I believe like of course there were like large gaps for normal day stuff, but I think the total amount of editing took 4 days, not in a row, but just 4 days in general, in total time.
Remember, he was still in school at the time
Yeah.
through this whole thing. So I think, what was it, April when it was put out?
I don't actually
I
remember.
think it was April when it and we did that sometime, and it started in January, I think.
Yeah.
I think.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. Pretty sure that was what happened. But
So your background is mostly in stop motion animation, where you have 100% control over every minute movement of your performers. So what was it like going into documentary filmmaking, where it's sort of like organized chaos?
I didn't find it that differently, just because mostly I just me as well as the main interviewers would ask them questions and just have conversations with them. And then maybe while they were in the middle of talking, then I would maybe go like this to tell them to raise their voice because the background noise. But
I think we were pretty lucky because, as you can see, they did a pretty good job. You know, all of this is one take.
Yeah, wow.
And that's kind of crazy, isn't it? Unscripted in one take. And they edited a little bit. You know, a couple of them you
Yeah.
can see, you know, edited more than others. But they were very good subjects, wouldn't you say?
really good.
Yeah, yeah. That I still remember that one, the fellow who did that there, his last name is Gross. His other stuff is really cool. I mean, digital, what was it called? I can't
It was
remember.
called Fractal.
Fractal.
Yeah, I just-
Very cool stuff. And you know, their art runs the gamut. It's very, very diverse, but really, really interesting. And you know, I really like this. I wish we'd have had an opportunity. What we did with this, what I did with the narration a little bit was, I took some research we did at the library, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't take it verbatim, but I took a lot of the information that someone tried to set up, and the gentleman passed away. Jim, I can't remember what his last name was. And he was part of a book that someone did some years ago. And so I took a lot of the information from that, but we went through all kinds of old newspapers and things like that, and you took a couple of pictures from that,
And we
right?
didn't even just the images of the original founders. We didn't just have to Google it.
Oh, we didn't Google
We didn't
anything.
we didn't Google anything, but we didn't just go on Google Images and type their name in or anything like that, because we thought that it would be as simple as that, but it turned out that some of them we even had to just take the book and then just take our iPhone and just take a picture of it and then use that.
Yeah. So it was.
It was that tedious.
Yeah, but it was, you know, it was a really great learning experience, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
And you really appreciate what you guys have done. You know, anybody who's done before this, but yeah, it was really cool.
Is that your mom? Or your aunt or relation that was
Our
in
mom, his mom,
Oh,
my
is your
wife.
mom?
Yeah. Yeah, and she's an artist. We had a couple of her pieces in
it?
there.
I saw.
That's how we got involved. She let us know.
Yeah.
That's how we got involved.
Cool.
Tim, how many different projects have you filmed?
Dozens.
I would probably be right in saying that in every one, you learn something.
Sure, of course, yeah.
So to start out learning is how you do it.
Absolutely. And when you're talking about what you're going to do there, and when they say just do it, that's really important, isn't it? It's just, it's to do it. And then, you know, you look at what you've done and you maybe tweak it if you're lucky enough to have some money behind you, which we didn't. And they were cool about that, you know.
It was all free.
It was all free.
No budget.
There was no budget, but it's amazing what you can do when you have to. You know, you figure those things out, right? So I have a little bit of background because my brother has done this sort of thing, and I helped him with it 35 years ago when he was first starting out.
And I've helped him too.
Yeah, that's right. Last summer,
Yes,
Max got to work on a commercial, and so I know how to work on the cheap. and it's kind of exciting to be able to do that, you know. Frankly, I don't know what I would do if there was a budget involved, except I'd have the director tell me, okay, what do you want me to do, and how much are you going to give me to do it,
Right.
and you live within that. So in this case, we live within nothing, and that was okay. So thank God the iPad or the iPhones didn't break, you know, that
Well,
we had to get a new one.
come to think of that, when we were at the Croc Center, we did have a lot of trouble with our phones they kept filling up with memory because we already had like so many images on our phones of, especially mom's stuff, because she took pictures of her own paintings. So that was filling up. Ironically, that wound up filling up the phone. So we had to delete a bunch of stuff, and that added even more time to what we were doing when we were interviewing at the Croc Center.
Well, that's something that we would learn the next
Yeah,
time, right?
make sure
Was
that
make
we
sure
had
you got an
plenty-
iPhone that
Plenty of
has
storage
nothing
data.
on it. You know, we had dog pictures and cat pictures.
So you go out and buy yourself a new iPad that's got 251 gigabytes instead of 36 like I have.
There you go. So
Yeah.
you get it. So you know what he was talking about there. And did you use the iPad at the Century Center?
I think it used it at both places,
You did?
but mostly, yeah, I used the iPad at the Century Center the entire time, and I used it a little bit at the Croc Center, but it was mostly phone at the Croc Center.
Yeah. So what did y'all think?
It's very good.
Yeah.
Very awesome, man.
Yeah, I really liked for me, after doing the research, I thought it was kind of an important little snippet of history for South Bend,
Mhm.
because these people have been doing this, and it's not just because of my wife, but there have been artists throughout this community, and you're all artists too, that you need to not just recognize them for the fact that they should be recognized for it, but you don't want to lose that,
We had to ask them for clearance to play this, to be
Yeah.
allowed to play this.
Right. And they were,
It's
I was
upstairs.
really kind of surprised. They were really cool with it. And they look at it, I think they looked at it like this. Oh, cool, people will be able to see more of my pieces. So, it was nice.
Andy?
Alright, so Max, you've done this, you've done the stop motion stuff.
Yep.
What's next? What do you wanna do? What do you wanna do moving forward with, do you wanna do more stop motion? Do you wanna do, what do you see for yourself coming down the line?
Well, I think that mostly I've been trying to experiment with more animation. I'm trying to expand my animation.
Your capabilities,
Yeah,
like what we were doing at the library?
your repertoire.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've been trying to work on maybe computer animation of sorts, but I also have been doing making short videos on iPhone that live action iPhone videos. But yeah,
Yeah.
what do you have to say about it?
Well, I think that I think it's just all really cool, and it's a neat thing from a parent side, because I don't want to have to. I just want it to be, as we've used this term before, as organic as possible, because plainly his interest is different than mine ever was. I don't know this, okay? So you like to nurture it, but you don't want to get in the way of it, and you don't want it to be something that's obligatory, right? So, come back and talk to me in 10 years if you got a 14-year-old kid, or 10 or 15 years, and I'll tell you how it turned out, But I think it's really good for him. It's something that he likes, but it's also something that teaches him how to I keep coming back to how you start a project and you finish the project, and that was really cool.
I have a suggestion for you. I had to do a project in college, it was on paper documentary of the city of Mishawaka. If you get their permission, you can go to the city of South Bend or Elkhart or whichever one they want to do, and this can be documented and archived in the city history.
Yeah, that would be good.
And you can also archive it with their permission in the library history of local history. It's just a
That would be,
suggestion.
you know what, that's an excellent suggestion, because where did we go for a lot of our stuff?
The library.
The library.
I mean, you'd have to get their permission,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they do have a lot of these things on archive that most people don't even know about and you'll probably never see. But they do have it, and they keep it with the local history, they keep it in like, my piece is in the city of Mishawaka. It's not open for viewing, but it is there. It was when it first published, non-paid work. But they will take these things, they will keep them in their archives for future historical, so. But you have to get their permission if they had you do this first,
Okay,
so, yeah.
thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, but try both, you know, whatever cities this is affecting. But go to the mayor office, ask to speak to the mayor, and then go to the library, go to the genealogy department. You probably want to talk to Joe Sippets and see where you can get it turned into there.
That's kind of the area that we were at over at the public library.
Yeah.
And also, one last thing for me, anybody who, go over to, it's called Studio 304.
304B.
Yeah, at the public library, and they got fantastic, you know, resources there, and they're free if you've got a library card. You know, I think one of the things that was a real big difference was when Max said, let's go down to the library and use one of those rooms, and they gave you this like old-fashioned, professional, really great microphone that he tweaked to get the right kind of sound, and so there you had that, except for when we were in the open spaces, we had the consistency for the narration, so, you know, that was on him again. I just read what we wrote, you know,
I
so.
was trying to figure out, is that Max talking or is that his dad?
That was my documentary voice.
Okay, well, I was like, which one was it?
Yeah, it was, very good.
So actually, I have another comment for you. I think you did a great job, very nice. I was very fortunate to have parents that were very organic and let me do a lot of odd things growing up. I mean, I had talked about this a little bit during my presentation, anywhere from breeding scorpions to going with Tim for a whole summer on a band trip. So anyway, I think it's fantastic. I see you have great potential. And one thing I want to tell you is don't be afraid to fail. Your dad and I were talking about this before. I've done a lot of odd things and I've learned a lot of weird things over the years, but most of them are because I failed at something. And one of my biggest things that I have to deal with is beating myself up because of it. Don't allow yourself to do that. Allow yourself to embrace the flaws and learn from them, because I bet everybody in this room can say they set out to make a film that they wanted to do, and it's somewhat like that, but it's completely different and beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, you know, thanks a lot, that's really true. And you know, I don't remember when he ever said yes to me telling him he was going to do this, but his behavior said yes pretty quick. You know, there was no resistance. So I was...
Opportunity to make a film?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you know. So, but this was a very different kind of animal for him. And he did, you know, I was real pleased with how he handled it mostly. What he does is always, you know, it's good. But how he did it, I was real pleased with. So, yeah.
I think we should thank Max and Bill for coming. Thank you so much.